Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander. Week 9 of the NFL and fantasy football season is upon us. It's going so fast. I that's just one thing that I hate. I feel like you wait, that wait for football to come back is so torturously long. And then once it's back, it just feels like it goes so fast. I can't believe we're in week 9. I hope a lot of you out there are working with some 6-2, 7-1 teams. But I know a lot of you aren't. And either way, you're going to have some questions. You need some help about who to start, who to sit this week. So we're going to jump into the week 9 games and, hopefully help you get situated. All I can say is if you're sitting there and you're, 2-6, you're 3-5, you got to start playing your home run hitters at this point. You can't play it safe. You have to win every game from this point out. So start thinking about it that way. Play your home run hitters, your high ceiling guys, even if they're low floor guys, because at this point you can't afford any more losses with 4 or 5 regular season games left until the fantasy playoffs start. If you're 4-4, if you're 5-3, you're on that fringe of the playoffs. You got to just keep steady. Keep your eye on the waiver wire. Just make sure you're not missing anything. This is the time to really buckle down and spend the extra time looking at the matchups, looking at the weather, whatever it is you got to do here. But need to keep above that 500 line. And for most leagues, if you're 7-6, you're probably going to get in. If 6 teams make the playoffs at least, then you're probably looking pretty good at 7-6 in a lot of leagues. So just keep your eye on the prize here. Keep tuning into the GOAT, and we're going to help get you in the promised land, all right? So week 9 begins, well, actually week 9 began last night in Arizona, but we'll go over that in our review show next week. But for our purposes, week 9 is going to begin on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. at Wembley Stadium in London. So the Houston Texans are taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. So just remember that 9:30 start time. If you've got some injured players in this game, if you've got some questionable players that you're thinking about playing, DJ Chark, D.D. Westbrook, guys like that, make sure you have a plan for that, whether you're going to take them out of your starting lineup on Saturday night and kind of see what happens just in case you don't get to it Sunday morning. But if you go ahead and leave them in your starting lineup, then you need to be sure they're either active Saturday night or make sure you set that alarm nice and early. Get up, have a little coffee, and make sure to take care of your team. Find out if these guys are active and how they're looking in the pregame. It's the only game on that early, obviously, so there will be plenty of coverage, and you should know, how these guys are looking. We're going to start with the Houston Texans, though, here, since they are technically the road team. Unfortunately, this is a home game for the Jaguars, but the Houston Texans, there's not that many question marks here. You're playing Deshaun Watson, that goes without saying. I think you're playing Carlos Hyde. I mean, it's very possible you have better running back options, and that's fantastic if you do. But if you're, got a couple of guys on a bye this week, if the injury bug is hitting you hard, if you're looking for that flex play, sign me up for a guy that's getting, 16, 17 plus touches a game. I love the volume. I know the numbers haven't been overwhelming. That goes without saying. But in all honesty, I mean, I just love the usage. This is a team that likes to throw the ball deep, and I see them, getting near the goal line, with some regularity, and that would be where he's going to get the ball. He's only got 3 touchdowns on the season so far, but I'd be looking to take an increase on that for the second half of the year. I feel like it's going to be 5 or 6 more touchdowns to come, just based on the volume alone. So while he hasn't looked like a world beater, I don't know why people are so hesitant on Carlos Hyde right now. If you need him, go ahead and play him. Duke Johnson is definitely a little further down the list as far as dependability goes. I'm okay playing Duke Johnson in that flex spot if you absolutely have to, but you just have to understand that the ceiling is very limited there. You're only going to be looking at 4 or 5 receptions kind of at the most likely, and you're really hoping that one of those breaks for a long play and or a touchdown, which very well might happen for Duke Johnson. He's been looking great. His elusiveness has been, almost revelatory so far this season. I didn't really know that he could, do that well out in space, and he really has. So I think you can play Duke Johnson, but he's somebody I don't want to play. It's more of you can play him if you're looking for, a decent floor and low ceiling kind of a guy. I know he's looking for that. But you can play him. You know you're playing DeAndre Hopkins, that goes without saying. I think you shouldn't give up on Kenny Stills quite yet. I know he disappointed a lot of people, myself included, last week when he was one of the top, if not the top, waiver wire pickup, and with Will Fuller out for an extended period of time. You know, the thought was that the deep ball could be there, plus the volume. Now, he didn't get any deep passes last week, and that really was probably the most disappointing part of his game, but I just think that if you're going to pivot away from him right now on the assumption that he's not going to get those deep balls, I think that you're missing out on an opportunity here. I don't think he's a must-start by any means. But if you're looking at that flex spot and you're saying, gosh, I've got, this guy with, a low ceiling but a decent floor, or I can play Kenny Stills, I'm playing Kenny Stills. I think that he's going to have a good week this week. There's not a lot of pass rush for the there hasn't been just, an overwhelming amount of pass rush for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I do think that Deshaun Watson's going to have some time to get the ball out of his hands today, Sunday morning. And I think he'll be looking for Stills down the field. So keep going with Kenny Stills. I'm okay with playing him for one more week. I'm gonna kind of push you in that direction of playing Kenny Stills for one more week. We'll see if I fall flat on that one. This week, one of the top waiver wire pickups, is probably going to be Darren Fells, the tight end for Houston, who's been finding the end zone quite a lot, and that's really where his value is. It's not a high volume as far as some of the guys out there go, but it's very high value targets. He is becoming Deshaun Watson's probably most trusted asset in the red zone, especially, lately these last few weeks. And I want part of that. I want part of a high-scoring offense where the quarterback is looking for my guy in the end zone. There are a few tight ends out this week: Tobias, Austin Hooper, Gerald Everett, guys like that. I think Darren Fells is a good play as long as this could definitely be a 3 or 4 point play. That's absolutely well within the range of outcomes for Darren Fells this week. But I also think that 10 plus points is not only possible, but I would call it likely. It's not user bias. I do have Darren Fells playing in 2 different leagues. I did pick him up in both leagues where I have Gerald Everett. I went ahead and snagged him, and I'm going to play him. But not just because I have him. I do think he's going to have a pretty good week, and I'd be willing to bet that he finds the end zone again. Moving to Jacksonville, Gardner Minshew. He was great as a streamer for you last week. And I think he could be really good as a streamer for you this week. J.J. Watt is now out for the rest of the season. Jadeveon Clowney is already gone from Houston. I think Gardner Minshew is going to have plenty of time to find his weapons out on the outside. So, I think that if you have Gardner Minshew and you're still thinking about streaming him, for Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, go ahead. I think he's one of the top streaming options for me this week. Probably one of the top 2 or 3 quarterback streamers for me this week. You're playing Leonard Fournette. The volume's been there. The performance has been there. So that's fine. You got to figure some more touchdowns got to come with how much he's getting the ball. But it's still all right. He's still performing. The points are there even without the touchdowns. And that's just because of the crazy volume. So go ahead. You're playing him. As far as your wide receivers, here's where it gets a little hairy for Jacksonville. You've got both DJ Chark and D.D. Westbrook. We're on the injury report as of Thursday. Now, it does appear that DJ Chark has been taken off of the injury report. So as far as that's concerned, I think that you have to play DJ Chark. I do think he's right on the cusp of that wide receiver 1 category this week. So you're playing DJ Chark. I definitely think with D.D. Westbrook still questionable, I feel like he's not going to be a big part of the game plan. So whether or not he is active, I think you can still place Chris Conley this week in the flex position. I see no reason, to think otherwise. Even if Westbrook is active, I think Conley's going to get those 5-6 targets, and any one of those could be a big play the way he's been playing lately. Do I think he's a must-start as a flex? No, I don't. Do I think he's a very good option there? Yes, I do. D.D. Westbrook owners, I wouldn't be playing D.D. Westbrook unless he puts in a full practice today, which is Friday. Doesn't look like that's happening. So at this point, I want to sit Pt Westbrook. But if you're thinking about playing him again, just remember, get up early, make sure he's active, make sure he looks good on the sidelines. There's going to be plenty of coverage. So just beware. But I would be taking Pt Westbrook out of my starting lineup for this week. And DJ Chark, number one wide receiver. Chris Conley, very viable flex option. There are no tight ends I want to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're going to move on to our next game. We're moving to the 1 o'clock slate. We're going to start in Buffalo, where the Washington Redskins are going to go up to Buffalo and take them on now. Very low over-under in this game. It's an over-under of 37. Buffalo's giving 9.5 points. So, Vegas is not thinking that Washington's going to score very many points. And I don't blame them. They're going to be starting Dwayne Haskins. And I won't be starting Dwayne Haskins. I don't think he is on anyone's, radar, to be streamed. But just in case he is, let me just talk you off the ledge. Go ahead and get that idea out of your mind. On the road against a strong Buffalo defense, a strong secondary, and he's just looked, very raw. So that's just my opinion. The fact of the matter is, I don't want to play any of my Redskins this week. I know that Adrian Peterson looks like he could be a decent play. With Callahan calling the shots, Haskins behind center, they're going to want to take a little bit of the pressure off of him. They probably are going to run the ball a decent amount. I expect to see a lot of stacked boxes by Buffalo and really be ready to stop the run. And while he might have 20 carries, I still wouldn't be looking for even a 10-point game out of Adrian Peterson at this point. There might be some receptions, maybe some dump-offs, and I could be wrong, but I'm not looking to play Adrian Peterson. I guess as a flex play, he's viable, but I'd recommend against it. Same thing with Terry McLaurin. He's going to wind up to be somebody that a lot of people play out of necessity in their flex spot, and there is that home run chance, but I just don't see the big play coming here against Tre'Davious White, against the Buffalo secondary, and with Dwayne Haskins throwing the ball. Anything can happen. I'm just not betting on it this week. So, easy enough. I'm just saying don't play any of your Redskins. I'm going to leave it at that. Do play some Buffalo Bills, though. I think you're okay doing that. Josh Allen will continue to be a top streamed option this week. At this point, he might not even be a streamer. He's probably being rostered by people to hold on to. He's got a nice little stretch of schedule here. He's looked pretty decent. And the second half of the season last year was where he really kind of tore it up. So I think you're playing Josh Allen with confidence this week. As far as the running backs go, I don't know what to do here. I'm not playing Frank Gore unless I have to. I think that with Devin Singletary coming on, with Devin Singletary's snap share increasing rapidly, that the touches are going to go down for Gore. The opportunities to score, the opportunities to catch any passes are pretty much going to disappear for Frank Gore. And while he's still always a decent play with a decent floor, I just think that's not what you're looking for this time of year probably. And I'd be looking elsewhere. I'd actually be playing Devin Singletary over Frank Gore if that was an option for you, if one was still on the waiver wire, or for some reason you had both of them. Just generally, I'd be looking to play Devin Singletary over Frank Gore this week. Even though Devin Singletary, I don't know that I'm ready to play him yet. I do have him stashed in a couple of leagues. I love to see his snap count going up, but you need to see the carry count go up with it. Playing over 50% of the snaps last week, I think it was 65%, is great. But, when you're getting 4 carries, 6 carries, 3 carries, things like that, I'm just not ready to play you yet. I need to see a 12, 10 to 12 carry game with those 3 or 4 receptions in order for me to be, ready to play you. It's very, very, very possible he finds the end zone this week, but I'm just not ready to play him yet. John Brown, go ahead and play John Brown as a wide receiver. Maybe a fringe wide receiver 2 kind of a guy this week. I do feel confident in saying that for him. Cole Beasley, I think, is a flexible guy this week. He's definitely in play as a flex. For me, that's about it. There's not any tight ends for Buffalo I'm looking at. I'm not looking at Dawson Knox or Tyler Kroft right now. I think that's a desperation play. So that's not what I'm looking for. I think you can move on and you can find somebody better. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We're going to go out and move to Kansas City. This is probably the game of the week for me. This is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Kansas City, taking on the Chiefs. I really wish Mahomes was healthy and back. Without a doubt, this would be the game of the week. In Minnesota, go ahead, fire up all your weapons, play Kirk Cousins. He's been rolling lately. I know that Kansas City's a tough place to play, but I have an expectation that he's going to throw a couple of touchdowns again. I'm not looking for a monster game out of him. I just think he's been really feeling it lately, and the offense is rolling. This team is just on fire. And with the running threat of Dalvin Cook, I just think it opens up, so much for Kirk Cousins. I expect the Cousins-Diggs connection to hook up this week, and I would expect Stephon Diggs to have a big play this week. So I'm playing Kirk Cousins. You're playing Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison, not only is he probably the most valuable handcuff in football today, but he is actually slowly becoming viable on his own. They're winning games. He's getting touches in the second half. And he's been doing a lot with him. I mean, again, it's not a volume-based thing just because, obviously you have Dalvin Cook. He's getting the lion's share. It's just, he's scoring 6, 7, 8 points plus in most of these weeks. And it's just something to keep on the radar if you're desperate. I know it's difficult to play a obvious number 2. It's not like a 1A and a 1B situation. It's not any kind of committee here. So that stresses you out a little bit. But I definitely think you can play Alexander Madison as a dart thrower, someone that can have 50 yards and get into the end zone in this game. I expect there to be a decent amount of scoring. So definitely play Stephon Diggs. As I said, I think they're going to hook up for a big play. I'm not ready to play any other Minnesota receiving options. I think they're going to spread the ball around a good amount. I think you're going to see, a number of people contribute. And while it's going to be a good day for Cousins, it's going to be a big day for Dalvin Cook, and I think a big day for Stephon Diggs, but that's about where I want to cut it off. Adam Thielen, I'm not sure, what we're looking at with Adam Thielen. I haven't heard anything really different in the last, couple of days. He's been limited the last couple of days. If he puts in a full practice today on Friday, then, you're definitely, I think you're going to play Adam Thielen. I think he'll get in. If he's still limited today, I don't know. I have to wait and see till game day, but I'd be more inclined to lean towards him not playing this week. They're playing really well, and I want to give him that extra week to be 100% leaning towards that playoff push. So I don't know. I know it's tough not to play Thielen if he's active. That's just the way I'd be leaning. So there you go. Kansas City Chiefs. This is probably the last time that you can say this. But assuming that Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, I don't think there's a lot of Chiefs you want to play. I think you're going to play Tyreek Hill. I think you're going to play Travis Kelce. And outside of that, I really think that you're stretching it. Shady McCoy looked pretty decent, had the fumble and got sat, near the end of the third quarter last week. So we don't know if he's in the doghouse or not, how many carries he's going to get. Either way, it's still running back by committee there. Damian Williams has been looking better lately. I just think it's not a backfield I want a part of this week. I think they'll need to throw the ball to stay in the game, and I just don't trust any of the running back options there. Like I said, you're playing Tyreek Hill, you're playing Travis Kelce. Mecole Hardman is making big plays, and there's always that possibility. But, he's just not on the field enough for me to want to play him. I know he's making the big plays, but I just think you got to avoid, making a play like that. There's so many receivers out there that are, producing, that have good floors, like Preston Williams, guys like that, that I really think you can play over, some of these Chiefs receivers. So that'll change when Patrick Mahomes comes back. But for now, I expect it to be Matt Moore for another week, and I expect, another middle-of-the-road offensive performance. So go ahead, play Tyreek Hill, play Travis Kelce, sit your other Chiefs. Let's keep it rolling here. No need to take a lot of time. Ludo, you guys know what you're doing here. You guys know these players, so I'm not going to waste too much time on some things that you already know. Jets at the Dolphins. This one will be quick. So your Jets. I know it's at the Dolphins. So the theory is that you can play your Jets, because you can play everybody against the Dolphins. I don't see it that way right now. The Jets are definitely not playing well. So for me, who am I playing in this game? If I have Miami, assets, I do think you want to play Mark Walton if you are in need of a replacement running back. I think he's the clear-cut number one. He'll have the opportunity to show what he's got. So I think that you can play him in this game. I do think he's going to touch the ball 12 plus times, maybe 15 plus times throughout this game. And I'm okay playing him as a flex, player. I still think you can play Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. I know it's crazy to think you can play two Miami Dolphins receivers, but as long as Fitzpatrick is the quarterback, you're going to get targets. He's going to put the ball in their hands, even if he has one of those classic Fitzpatrick blow-up games with all the interceptions. They're still going to get some play. So, you've seen it with Devontae Parker. He scored, I think it's 3 out of the last 4 weeks. Preston Williams continues to be, a big presence physically on the field. He's a big kid, and he's an easy target to find. So I think these are both, moderate ceiling, but pretty high floor kind of receivers that you can play pretty easily. So I think you can play all those guys. For the Jets, I'm leaving Sam Darnold alone for another week. I just, I want to see him have a good week before I play him again. I think there's other streaming quarterbacks that are better options. I already mentioned a couple of those in Minshew, Josh Allen. I think those are 2 better options right there, and there's going to be more throughout these games. So I'm leaving Sam Darnold alone. Unfortunately, you're probably playing Lev Bell. As far as him coming out to the media and saying he wasn't happy with his amount of touches, this can only help the Lev Bell owner. They did pay him that money whether or not Adam Gase wanted to, and I think he's going to get a big workload this week. Whether or not he has a big game, I don't know, but I think he's going to have a good game and probably score you those, 15 points. So, you're playing Lev Bell. For me, that's it. If you need a tight end, you can play Ryan Griffin. I'm going to assume that Chris Herndon does not play again this week. Unfortunately, I've been waiting so long for Chris Herndon and had high hopes for him, and I still think he's going to be, an impactful fantasy player if he can get onto the field. But at this point, you can't do anything about that. So I don't want to play Ryan Griffin. I know he scored, a couple times, but I just don't really want any part of that. If you're a Robbie Anderson owner, this has got to be the last week where you say, all right, listen, if I play you, you got to do something because you're playing the Dolphins and everybody does something against the Dolphins, right? So Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson, if you can't get this connection going this week, I don't think it's going to happen, Robbie Anderson owners. It's going to be time to cut the cord. I wouldn't want to play him this week. I don't have him in any of my leagues, so I don't have to worry about it. But I wouldn't want to play him just based on what's going on. I'd be more likely to play Jamison Crowder and hoping for a return to that volume, which hasn't really been there either. So I hate to say it, Jets fans, but if I have Jets, I'm playing Lev Bell, and that is it. That's it. That's all I'm playing if I'm with Jets. If I'm owning some Jets. So let's quickly move on from there. All right, on to a better game here. The Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Chicago Bears. Hoping this is a good smash mouth football game. These two defensive lines and linebacking cores are pretty rough and tumble, hard hitting crews. So I'm looking forward to this game, honestly. Chicago finally gave the ball, finally fed David Montgomery last week. I definitely think that you're playing David Montgomery. I'm not expecting a week like that. I understand Philadelphia is a much better defensive line against the run, and that they're difficult to run against. I just think that he's going to get fed a good amount, and I think he's going to have a good game, good enough that he needs to be in your lineup this week. Same thing with Allen Robinson. You're playing Allen Robinson right now. Wasn't a great week last week, but things were fine, and he's their number one go-to option. It's not even close. So I think you want to play Allen Robinson in this matchup against a weak Philadelphia Eagles secondary. But for me, that's all the Bears I'm playing. I don't think you want to play Mr. Trubisky. He's been pretty darn bad for the most part, and he's not on my streaming radar. I also don't want to play Anthony Miller or Taylor Gabriel. I don't want to play Tariq Cohen. None of these guys are in my, anywhere ranked high enough for me to want to play them this week against the Eagles. So that's it for me. I mean, I think you want to play Montgomery. I definitely think you want to play Allen Robinson. Outside of that, I'm not playing Bears. For the Eagles, I don't know. I wouldn't want to play Carson Wentz this week. If you're a Carson Wentz owner, I think Gardner Minshew is a better play this week than a Carson Wentz is. So I'm going to just put it that way. I do think you want to play Jordan Howard, even against a stout Chicago Bears defense. They have had a few teams run on them with success. Josh Jacobs kind of tore them up. And I do think that with Miles Sanders a little bit banged up, that you can expect to see a little healthier dose of Jordan Howard. And just to the same extent, Miles Sanders with that big playability lately, I mean, it's really going to be tough to sit Miles Sanders. I completely understand that. That being said, it looks like, I'm looking at it now, it looks like he's off the injury report, so that's great news. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the script here. I'm sorry, I didn't see that he just got taken off the injury report. I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe you play Miles Sanders also as a flex. I don't know. The big playability is just undeniable. The guy gets the ball in his hands and makes stuff happen. So I think you need a home run play that you're putting Miles Sanders in as a flex, as a running back too, and hoping for the best. I think with him fully healthy, and that's what I'm looking at, he looks like he's fully healthy, then I'm going to go with that. That's fine with me. Jesus, my voice sound weird? Sounds weird to me. It feels weird to me. Let me know in the comments or send me a shout on Twitter. Let me know if I sound weird, all right? All right, what's going on here? Where are we at? So, yeah, I mean, continuing to go with the Eagles, that's the running back situation. As far as the receivers go, Alshon Jeffrey's been a little bit troublesome. I think you're still going to load him up as a wide receiver 3 flex kind of a guy. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's a high percentage he finds the end zone this week. I don't think it's going to be big volume for him, so I think you're hoping for that touchdown. I think he's a little bit more valuable in standard leagues this week than he would be in PPR leagues. But I think you're going to play Alshon as the number 1 here. I don't think that Deshaun Jackson will be back this week, unfortunately. I mean, I know they said he's, kind of trending towards playing. Doug Peterson's quote is he's optimistic that he's going to play against the Bears. I don't know. I'm just not ready. He's been out for so long. It's been such a slow road back with his abdominal tear, whatever it is, that I'm not ready to play. I'm not ready to just assume that Deshaun Jackson is going to be in the game. So if you're a Djax owner, I think you got to wait another week. If you're an Alshon owner, I say play him. Tight end, big question mark for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you have Zach Ertz, you had the high draft capital. He's still getting a decent share of targets. It's just he's the less effective of the 2 tight ends, and that really stings because you didn't have to pay for Dallas Goedert, but you paid a 3rd-round draft pick for Zach Ertz, and it continues to not pay out for you, and that's quite unfortunate. So, sorry about that. You're probably playing Zach Ertz, and it's hard for me to tell you not to. But, I think you should play Dallas Goedert. If you're a guy looking for a tight end, he's one of my top, kind of replacement tight ends. He's probably rostered in most leagues, but, Dallas Goedert has shown that he has a nose for the end zone, and that just, really irks me and scares the crap out of me if I'm an Ertz owner, but I get it. You're playing Ertz, so what am I going to say to talk you out of it? Probably nothing, but don't expect a big game out of him. It's just what it is at this point. It's not what they're doing and with the Philadelphia offense, so, All right, let's move on here. Let's do the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Indianapolis Colts. This is kind of a sneaky, important game for both of these teams. Pittsburgh didn't look great against the Dolphins last week on Monday Night Football until they, kind of picked it together, pulled it together here in the 4th quarter and, got the win. But it was looking shaky there for the first, 2.5, 3 quarters. So we'll see if they play a little better this week against a very, very game Indianapolis Colts team. I'm picking the Colts to win this game on the road. That being said, I'm not looking at playing too many Colts players. I think you're playing Marlon Mack for sure. I don't know that I want to play Jacoby Brissett. He's not near the top of my list this week for streaming options. I just think that Pittsburgh Steelers, linebacking core, that they're going to play, kind of a tight game. And I just don't think that Brissett is one of the better streaming options. He's not a bad option. I just don't think he's near the top of that list for me. Marlon Mack, you're absolutely playing. Don't get cute. Play your Marlon Mack. And as far as receivers go, T.Y. Hilton still struggling a little bit with the injury. We'll see what his practice schedule is like today. Hopefully he gets in most of a full practice. Looks like he wasn't present for the early part of Friday's practice. So for me, that is not a good thing. I don't like to see that at all. Eric Ebron didn't practice yesterday, which was Thursday. I haven't seen an update on him yet today. So, as far as the Indianapolis Colts receiving options go, probably the only person I'm looking at playing, really, is Jack Doyle. With Eric Ebron hurt, with Ty Hilton, T.Y. Hilton, Ty Hilton. With T.Y. Hilton hurt, and possibly, probably not playing, I'm definitely looking at playing Jack Doyle as a good tight end. That might not be on a lot of people's radar for this week. But no, I'm not really looking at Zach Pascal or Paris Campbell. I just think that it's going to be a game where a smart Indianapolis team and Frank Reich looks to run the ball an awful lot and just really slow the game down and hopefully pull out a W on the road. So that's what I'm looking for out of that game. In Pittsburgh, it's been an issue with James Conner and the injury. It looks like he, is maybe not going to play most weeks, and then, he plays pretty much every week and does great. He had another great week, last week. So he missed practice on Thursday. Benny Snell is going to be out for a few weeks. Jalen Samuels is going to be back this week after being out for a couple of weeks. So I feel if James Conner is able to play, he's going to play. That being said, I'm not excited about playing a lot of Steelers this week, to be honest with you. James Conner with those shoulder things, he could be out there, get hit once, and be out for the game, right? So keep an eye on him for this weekend. Let's see what they say about Friday's practice. I haven't seen an update yet to see how much he's played or how much he's practiced, if at all. I know he will try to give it a go if they give him the opportunity, but we'll see if that's in the cards. So keep an eye on that. James Conner's owners right now, I'd be leaning towards not playing James Conner. Hopefully you have Jalen Samuel on that team. Maybe you picked him up last week, when Conner was showing another injury, and maybe you're ready to play Jalen Samuels, because if James Conner is limited in any way, I do think Jalen Samuel is kind of a must-play option. I do think he'll be an RB2 if James Conner is severely limited or out for this game. So keep an eye on that. Juju had a good game last week. It was nice to see. I know Juju owners were thrilled to see that. They really needed it. But he had a big game. He had a good game, and you're going to fire him up this week, and you're not thinking twice about it. Now, that's it. I'm not playing Deontay Johnson yet. He had that great play at the end of the half against Miami, but let's be honest here. That was absolutely atrocious defensive play calling by Miami, leaving the entire field open for this guy to catch a slant and just run away from everybody. It was pretty ridiculous, but the volume's not there yet, so I'm not ready to play Deontay Johnson. I'm still not playing, Dante Moncrief or James Washington, and I'm definitely not playing Vance McDonald. I think that bus has passed, and Vance McDonald is not on my radar. Mason Rudolph is on my radar for streaming quarterbacks. I'd have him down as probably the fourth highest streaming quarterback of the week against a pretty good Indianapolis defense, but I think at home in a big game where they need to win, I think he's going to have a decent game. Nothing great, but, I think he'll be all right. So, I think you can play him if you need to, but I definitely have other quarterbacks ahead of him, and, that'll be that. Where are we going next? I think we have one more game on the docket for today. Let's see here. All right, let's go to Carolina. The Carolina Panthers are going to be hosting the Tennessee Titans. The Titans come in looking pretty good with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback. They pulled that game off last week against Tampa Bay, and I think this is going to be a pretty decent game, honestly. So you've got Ryan Tannehill taking on Kyle Allen's going to be in again for the Carolina Panthers. So, if you've got Tennessee Titans, I've got Ryan Tannehill as a decent streaming option this week. Nothing great. He's definitely, for me, he's below Minshew and Allen. He's a little bit below, maybe, some of these other guys we were just talking about, Jacoby Brissett. I'd probably have him below Jacoby Brissett, but still a good option for you, and I think a safe option for you. He's been taking care of the ball well. He's, gaining decent rapport with his weapons. So I think he's going to have a decent week. I think he's a sneaky kind of a quarterback play this week. You're definitely playing Derrick Henry, so, no reason to get cute there. Go ahead and play Derrick Henry. The receiving options and the tight ends are where it gets a little bit tricky here with Tennessee. I don't know. I don't want to play any Tennessee receivers. A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries. I know I said that Ryan Tannehill is a decent streaming option, and I do believe that. But I don't think that it's going to be a big enough day to sustain, any of these receivers as far as what you need them to get. I do think, however, that Jonnu Smith is a guy that you want to play with. Delaney Walker most likely out again. We've seen Jonnu Smith come up big in these situations with Walker out. We've seen that he seems to have a connection with Tannehill. So I do think he's one of the top, tight end, plays this week, as in that he easily could be in the top 6 at the end of the week. He could be in that first half of the tight ends at the end of the week. So I think you want to play Jonnu Smith. And I think that there's only a handful of other guys I'd really be playing above Jonnu Smith this week. So go ahead, play him with confidence. Hold me accountable if I'm wrong, no problem. Carolina here, some big questions also. So, Kyle Allen, he's pretty far down on my streaming list, so he's not there. You're playing Christian McCaffrey. That's silly, so, we're going to move on to the receiving options for the Carolina Panthers. Here's where it's hard to, manage expectations. Both of these guys, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, have a rather limited ceiling and a decent floor. So depending on what your team looks like this week, depending on how many points you expect to be down, what your projections look like, what your matchups look like, I think you can play DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel as wide receiver 3s or flex. I think they're both going to be in that area. But I don't see either one of them really having a 18 to 20 point kind of a game. I think they're both going to be in that 10 to 14 point range, which can definitely be enough for you. It can be enough for you depending on what you need. I'm okay with that point total if I have some home run hitters out there. If I have guys I feel like are getting monster production from, if I have DeAndre Hopkins, then I'm great with having DJ Moore as a number, 3. So, it all depends on what your team looks like, but I do think that DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are very viable plays, and I would be expecting in a PPR format again, in that 10 to 14 point range. And that's not a bad day. You're happy with that, most times. So, Greg Olsen, I hear a lot of people saying they feel like this is going to be a good week for Greg Olsen, and I don't really understand where that comes from. I'm not saying that he's not going to get a few targets. I don't see the optimism here with a Greg Olsen play. So I would, in this game, I don't even think it's close. I'd be playing Jonnu Smith. I have him ranked well above Greg Olsen for this week. So I don't see it. If I'm a Greg Olsen owner, which I'm not, I would not have him in my starting lineup unless I really, really didn't have any better options. There are better options out there for you. If you're not sure who those options are, if you want to ask me about specific questions about who to play, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter or email the show. So, you can hit me up on Twitter. It's at GoatFFPodcast. Or you can hit me at Jim Neander, no problem. So, let me know. If you need some help, I'm here to help you out. Ask me specific questions. Tell me who's available on your free agent wire. I'll be glad to give you my opinion on who to pick up. And, we'll see. I'm nailing it so far right now. My teams are rolling. I got a lot of teams heading right towards the playoffs. And, all my teams are trending upward right now. And that's roster management. You got to be paying attention. You got to know what's going on, who's trending up, what the matchups are, and what's it like looking forward. So, hey, that's what I'm here for. If you don't have the time to find that stuff out, if you don't have the hours I put into the research, then just come and watch us. Come see the show. It takes less than an hour. You can find out who you need to play in your games, in your matchups. But that's going to do it for us on this episode of The GOAT. So that was the first half of our Week 9 preview. Tomorrow we'll have the second half of the games. So make sure to look out for that. Keep an eye on the injuries. There's a lot of them this week. Keep an eye on the matchups and keep an eye on the weather. We're getting to that time of year where there's going to be a lot of weather in play. We've seen it the last couple of weeks with rain. You're going to start seeing it with cold weather, a lot of wind, maybe even some snow in some parts of the country here coming up in the next week or two. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you're watching the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast, and we're going to help you get into the playoffs and hopefully take you to the promised land, and you can gloat to all your friends and league mates for a whole beautiful offseason until next year. So until next time, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you soon. Have a good one. Enjoy the games on Sunday. All right.